name is Katherine Leg, and she is setting the standard for all the women in the ultra-demanding arena of professional motorsports. She is the only one in history to take the checkers at a major open-wheel professional event, and she's done it not once, but twice. Her first victory, of course, came at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach and featured a daring wheel-to-wheel confrontation with one of the most talented collection of competitors the Toyota Atlantic Championship has ever fielded. The next 6 events, however, featured a host of disappointments. The 24-year-old Briton wanted desperately to prove that Long Beach had not been a fluke, that she could lead and beat this elite field again, but such a prospect began to dim. Then came Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, round number 8 in the 32nd season of the most prestigious open-wheel development series in the world, and Katherine proved her point. From the moment the green flag fell, it was clear to all that she was not just in the hunt, she was on it. Her pass of championship points leader Charles Wolzman was one born of racing instinct, a move that even many a veteran would have had trouble making. She captured the lead, and she never looked back. Katherine had done it. She had proven to all that she is for real, that Long Beach had indeed been a pronouncement of her arrival upon the motorsports scene, not just a twist of fate. Perhaps more importantly, however, she had proven to herself that she was capable of more, much more. In spite of all the drama we witnessed at Edmonton, the point scenario remained pretty much unchanged, with Wolzman maintaining the lead and Kazmets, Bissett, and Worth close behind, and Leg rounding out the top 5. With his 5th Yokohama C2 Cup win, Justin Sofio has moved tantalizingly close to securing the division title in that complimentary group of Atlantic competitors. Today, this talented field of Champ Car and Formula One drivers-to-be face their next challenge, a brand new facility in Northern California. For the 2nd race in a row, they will compete without the benefit of prior knowledge. No setup notes from previous races, just a learn-as-you-go, wide-open throttle test of driver, team, and machine. Welcome, everybody, to San Jose, California, and Champ Car's newest location, the 1.4-mile, 11-turn temporary circuit through the streets of San Jose. I'm Rick DeBrule, along with Jan Beekes and pit reporter Dave Burns. I'll be bringing you the coverage of the Atlantic's inaugural visit to Silicon Valley. Let's take a look at how the cars have qualified for this weekend for the 4th consecutive time. Charles Wolzman is on the pole. Beside him, Tony Kazmets, who was fast on Saturday until he had a minor problem.
In Saturday's final qualifying session, Tonis Kazmets made hard wall contact coming out of turn number 4. Why was he charging so hard? Well, he's locked in a championship battle, and every point counts. You get a point if you qualify on the pole. But Tonis, what happened while you were going for that 1 point?
We had a very fast car, and I was pushing very hard, and made a little driver error, and the rear end stepped out. I corrected and hit it a wall.
Row number 2 finds David Martinez from Mexico still looking for that first victory beside Katherine Leg. Row 3, 19-year-old Kyle Kelly is back for the series. Beside him, Toronto winner Antoine Bissett. Row number 4, Andreas Worth, a regular beside a newcomer to the series, Alan Shuto, in his first Atlantic start.
Let me introduce you to 2 names you might not be familiar with in Toyota Atlantic Racing, PR1 Motorsports and Alan Shuto. Alan, where'd you come from?
I came from go-karting. I've been doing that since I was about 9, 10 years old, and just this year decided to retire from go-karting and move on to cars. So it's a little bit of a tricky first race for me, but me and the team are starting to get figured out.
Row number 5, another newcomer, Phil Giebler beside Al Unser III. Row 6, returning to the series, Grant Riley, and another newcomer, Ryan Spencer-Smith. Row number 7, Justin Sofio, Lee Atkins. Row 8, Dan Selznick, Darrell Liskey. Row number 9, Brian McAtee and Dan Cobb. Row 10, Bob Liska and Mark Ishikawa. And finally on the grid, Chris Soliotis. Dave Burns is on pit row for us. Let's check in with him.
Well, Rick, the Bay Area Rapid Transit System runs down Boulevard directly across the fastest part of this track. That makes a huge bump in the racing surface. Now, they've done some fast-drying concrete patchwork to try to smooth the transition, but the drivers tell me it's the most teeth-rattling jolt they've taken on a racing line all season long. And it could take its toll on both driver and equipment today. Jan?
And Dave, this is the way the track looked on Friday. They have made some revisions. In particular, they've changed the area in 1 and 2, opened it up in a chicane just before you get to the hairpin in turn number 3. Any way you look at it, it's tight, it's twisty, and tough to pass.
And hopefully there will be some passing, and Tony Kazmits is the guy who wants to do the first one because he is starting on that front row and needs to get by Zwolsman. We'll be on board with him. Also, we will be on board with Al Unser III as well. So those are at least 2 in-car cameras. Well, hopefully we'll get a third before this race goes on. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with the start of the race here in San Jose, the Toyota Atlantic Series, right after this. Racing here in the street circuit, temporary street circuit, downtown San Jose. Before we get the green, let's check in one last time with Dave Burns.
We know, Rick, Antoine Bassette's first experiences in racing were in rally racing, taking sedans, spinning out almost every corner, out of control. And he told me this morning, you know, that may help me today on the streets of San Jose. He said the exit of every corner on this track is very, very slippery, and it's an exercise in car control. He said, I'm very comfortable with how slippery it is here today on the streets of San Jose.
And Jan, what we really have to talk about as well is the start of this race, that first little chicane they're going to have to go through.
The first chicane is a very high-speed chicane, 125 miles an hour. Then there's the much slower chicane, about 55. This one here, definitely single file. But there's also a bit of a chicane going across those trolley tracks. That'll be wild.
All right, let's go racing here in San Jose, California. They're getting the green flag, and Tony Kazmits, who was qualified second fastest, is taking the lead right off the bat.
And here's where it has to be single file. Tony Kazmits, as you said, fantastic start over Zolzman. Only one car shortcuts.
And the rule is they can't gain position. So as long as he gets himself back into position wherever he was, he's okay. But the amazing thing was everybody made it through there very, very cleanly.
Katherine Leg appeared to have picked up one spot as well. A bit of a shuffling.
And that is back in the back of the pack. Car number 63, Daryl Liskey, on board once again with Al Unser III. Unser III right now, not where he wanted to be, didn't qualify as well. However, after the morning session, he said the car felt much better. And he was very proud of the fact that he hasn't clipped a single wall all week. In fact, he said in his entire street course career, he has yet to touch a wall. Not that I want to jinx him.
Katherine Leg, you can see now in the background, has moved up from a fourth starting spot to third. David Martinez, then there's Bassett. Look at Kyle Kelly. Kyle Kelly's right in there getting ready to make a move.
Kyle Kelly, who had to miss quite a few races because he got disqualified because of a problem after the Portland race, didn't have enough money to keep racing.
Definitely had great momentum off the final turn 11, but couldn't quite get it done on Antoine Bassett coming into that tight chicane. Look how slow and how tight that hairpin is. Only 25 miles an hour, the slowest corner these Atlantic cars have ever traversed.
And this particular circuit has been a bit of an adventure all weekend. On Friday they had an issue, they had to change it. On Saturday they changed it again. This morning they had to lay some new patches down. It's been sort of a varying creature all weekend.
But I think they fine-tuned it to the point now, and you can see by the fact that we've run a few laps there and haven't had a caution period, that I think they fine-tuned it. The drivers are getting used to it. And now as they start to get some tire temperature, it'll be very interesting if you can figure out a place to slice your way by. It was so important for Tony Kazmits to be aggressive on the start and try and get that position.
And we talked about the fact that in Monterrey, Mexico, Tony Kazmits didn't think he had a... Look at those bumps that they're going over right there. Those little railroad tracks just coming off that pit straight. They were talking about the fact that Tony Kazmits didn't feel he had the car to take the first turn in Monterrey, Mexico. And he told Charles Wolfsman, who was on the front row with him, you can have it, I'll get you later. And he was never able to get the victory. This time, he didn't tell him that before the race. He knew he had to get that turn right off the bat.
Now, one of the problems as we watch car 11, Charles Zolzman there, as the distance goes on, he's had trouble this weekend with boiling the brake fluid. So they actually have changed to a different type of brake pad that doesn't generate quite so much heat. And some of the other teams say that Charles Zolzman, a quote, actually one of the engineers told me that Charles Zolzman is the god on the brakes. He is so good in his braking ability, but now he has to learn some new brake pads, and that's going to be important if you want to get by Kazmits.
And you see him taking a look to the inside, and the drivers have said this is a very, very difficult place to pass. It's more a case of waiting for the guy in front to make a mistake as opposed to building up and setting up the pass like you would on a lot of racetracks. And they're starting to spread out a little bit. Those first three cars, Kazmich, Wolzman, and Leg, starting to get a little bit of a gap back to the fourth place car of David Martinez.
And I think it's a case where Tonis Kazmich is not, you can see a little bit of right front brake lockup from Kazmich. I think Kazmich is having to push hard. Remember, we saw the heavy contact against the wall in turn number 4. That car is not going to be in quite the same condition it was earlier. Dave?
With Carlos Bobeda now team owner for the second place running Wolzman. Carlos, could you tell what happened on the start?
There was nothing wrong. As a pole sitter, he had the choice to choose the left side of the track or the right side of the track. He chose the right side, and maybe it wasn't the right choice.
That was discussed down here this weekend, guys. What side would be the best side to be on, whether you're on the inside or the outside going into that first turn? And the pole sitter did have that choice. He chose the right side.
Yeah, it was funny because during the drivers' meeting, they raised the question, well, which side, what are the other drivers? That's which side are you starting? I was like, well, I have to make my decision now. And Charles was like, well, I guess I'll go right. And that's when the decision was made. We're going to take a brief break from San Jose. We'll come right back after this. Back here in San Jose, temporary street circuit, and the people here in San Jose have been great. Huge crowds on Friday, huge crowds on Saturday, 90,000 people the first 2 days, and there's a big crowd out there right now. Tonis Kazmich continuing to lead as he has from the very beginning of this race. Let's check in with Dave Burns.
And Rick, when we talked to him on the grid today, that tape that we saw, he's very serious about his wall contact that he made going for the pole. But I love the quote he made a little later. He has a good attitude about things and recovers from things like this very quickly. And he said in the press conference following qualifying, you know what? My driving was 99% fast and 1% error. That's Tonis Kazmich, and he continues to lead.
And it's that 1% that can catch you out. I was talking with him before the race up in Edmonton. I said, well, how do you like the track? He said, oh, this track has mojo. So this weekend I said, well, what about this place? He goes, oh, this place has double mojo.
He's running out of adjectives. Wow, look at David Martinez has closed the gap up to the back of Katherine Leg. Again, I think that it is a case where Tonis Kazmich, for a while, now he's picked the pace back up, but for a while, it took him a bit to get settled down, because once you repair a car and replace as many bits as Tonis Kazmich had to, the car doesn't feel the same, takes a bit of an adjustment.
And the engineers have been saying this weekend, and even the drivers have been saying, you know, this is a difficult place to pass. It's an easy race to lose because of the walls, because of the surfaces. And you see the various surfaces they have right there with the patches they put down. This is a place where it's so easy to make a mistake, and you don't want to do it. There's Antoine Bisset in the unique design car, the Toronto winner, and he's been clean all weekend. Had some brake issues. They feel they finally got those under control this morning, and he's much happier with the car going into the race.
And pretty impressive. We mentioned a couple times Kyle Kelly right behind him in car 24. Hasn't run the whole series, but he just has been so impressive. A youngster not with the same kind of budget as some of these other teams, and just as impressive each place he goes, and is displaying a lot of maturity.
Yeah, he's been running on prize money the entire way, and once again he had a small problem with a part that delaminated after a Portland race. As a result, the car was disqualified. Without the prize money, he couldn't keep going. It's taken him this long to raise the money to continue on. Dave?
Well, picture this, Rick. His best friend, Scott Butcher, was a big part of this team. Went with him to every race. And last Monday, he was fatally injured in a traffic accident near his home in Huntington Beach, California. I talked to Kyle this morning. I said, how hard was it to come to the track this weekend? He said, very hard. We almost didn't come. And as you might expect, this is the way Scott Butcher would have wanted it.
It's been a very difficult year for that team because he teams up with Brian McAtee. Brian McAtee's mom died earlier this year as a result of cancer. Brian is up here this weekend. In fact, he's been running with a Canary Fund sticker on the side of the car, donating some money, any prize money he gets out of this weekend. But it's just been very difficult now, especially with this problem, as a result of Scott's death earlier. This is something difficult for the team to go through, and it's easy when you're in the car and you're focused, but it's the rest of the weekend where it's difficult to endure that kind of thing.
This is the time in the race, though, where you can tell that Kyle Kelly was very focused. The car really hopping around on the brakes down there into turn number 11. But I think this is significant. Tonis Kazmich, who seemed to not necessarily have the pace early on, definitely has come to grips with how the car is working. We're not seeing that same brake locking. We're seeing that Zolzman is having a tough time keeping up.
Yeah, that Flexivit car has been running all weekend, and he was actually fastest in the qualifying session, but he lost his fast lap as a result of hitting the wall. Now, let's talk about his season. Back-to-back victories in Portland kept Tony Kazmits in the points battle, but an off-road excursion in Cleveland and an unfortunate pit stop in Toronto kept him from gaining on Wolzman's point lead. In Edmonton, Antoine Bissett got by, putting Kazmits fifth. As a result, he hasn't had the points he wanted, but he is second in the points championship, and winning here today could help significantly in trying to gain on the leader, Charles Wolzman. There you see the rundown of how he's done. That 15th in Long Beach really hurts when you look back at the whole season when you're going for a championship. So running on the streets of San Jose, we're going to take a brief break. Speed Channel coverage of the Toyota Atlantic Series will return.
So what I'd like to announce today is our commitment to the development of the Atlantic drivers, some of whom you'll see here, some of whom will be new to the series next year. As a solid progression through to Champ Car is that not only on top of the prize money, which is very significant for the series, but we're also going to announce a $2 million check that the winner of the 2006 championship can take forward and present to selected Champ Car teams, which will take them a long way towards having a solid season in Champ Car. So guys, hang around. You could be Champ Car drivers real quick.
With those words, Kevin Kalkoven ushered in the new era in Atlantic Series racing. But it won't be the only thing new for 2006. In competition for the first time will be the brand new Swift 016A, capable of 175 miles per hour. It'll be powered by a Cosworth, 2.3 liters, 4 cylinders, capable of 300 horsepower. Understandably, managing director for the series, Vicki O'Connor, was delighted with the announcement.
We've been fortunate to have such tremendous support from Toyota over the last 18 years. Now that Cosworth and Swift have stepped in, and Champ Car themselves were able to continue on, and it's a proud moment for all of us.
Man, they already have orders for 14 cars, which is good news for next year's series. But look at this. Tony Kazmits, leading the race, has come into the pits and stepped out of the car. Didn't appear to hit anything, but obviously he is distraught. Dave Burns, what went wrong?
Rick, he is in anguish. He is in anguish right now because a shifter broke on that car. We've not had a chance to talk to Tony's. Alan O'Leary, his engineer, trying to console him, but I have never seen Tony so upset as he is right now. And we will try to get a word with him a little later, but right now he's just in anguish because he had a winning race car. He was running away, and they tell me the shifter broke.
And we have to understand the background. I mean, this is a guy who was born in Estonia, raised in Estonia, 10 years ago, came to the United States, and really has put together a phenomenal racing season on a very small budget. You know, Alan O'Leary is technically the engineer for the team, but there's been times when Alan hasn't been there. Tony Kazmits does most of the engineering himself, puts together the entire budget. He teams up with Dan Cobb, who's helped him out a lot, but there is not a lot of money that's been spent, and there's been a lot of heart that's been put into that car, and it is so unfortunate to see that happen.
And of course, he does a lot of the mechanical work himself, so he takes it very personally if he hits something, if he has to repair it, or in this case, if something breaks. But that is unfortunately how racing goes. And Kyle Kelly getting pulled behind the wall.
Kyle Kelly, we told you the story. The 19-year-old is running on prize money as well. Obviously, something's gone wrong with his car, and he is being pulled off the track as well.
That's the exit of turn number 6. If he was over there to driver's right, that would, you would assume, again, another mechanical related type of problem. Obviously, it was rolling, so we've been able to keep these cars off of the walls, but unfortunately, that is rare in the Toyota Atlantic Series to see these type of problems because these cars are nearly bulletproof.
Rarely do we have a mechanical DNF, and now this is the front pack, the first 3 cars. Charles Wolzman now leads the race. Katherine Leg in second. David Martinez is third. Antoine Bissett is fourth. You see the orange car in the back. And let's check back in with Dave Burns and a little bit more on Tonys.
With Tonys now. Tonys, can you put into words the feelings right now?
I would like to say a blip word here. but I can't. It's a national television, and we have to put absolutely great show. And my team did excellent work fixing the car after the qualifying. The car was unbelievable today again. Everything was going in our way, and then it wasn't again. So we'll be back in Denver very strong.
How did the shifters break, Tonys? What happened?
It's just, I mean, I'm driving a 3-year-old car, and we're replacing things all the time, but, you know, who would thought that we have to replace a shifter, but it just broke because of the metal got probably old, but a shame for the team, shame for the championship.
He came in 15 points behind Zwolsman, and this is really going to hurt in the championship, Rick.
We got to jump back on the track here, Dave. We've got Dan Cobb, who is Tonys's teammate, who was spun down in the hairpin. And that, if he is out of the race, means that Justin Sofio is likely going to win the C2 championship, the Yokohama Cup. Because basically, the way the championship was set up, Dan Cobb had to win to stand any chance of winning that championship. And now we've got back markers who are playing into the championship.
That's one thing about no full course cautions in a very large Atlantic field here. This is going to make it great, in my opinion, for the leaders. Not only do you have to keep it off the walls, you have to keep it away from traffic.
Once again, it's an easy race to lose. The secret is not to make mistakes. Everybody's having fun out here in San Jose this weekend. We'll be back. Here in San Jose on the temporary street circuit, if I can say it, Charles Zwolsman. I got Zwolsman circuit, all those now names. Katherine Leg behind, David Martinez in third. Charles Zwolsman inherited the lead after Tonys Kazmats had the problem and dropped out. And now David Martinez is trying to see if there's a way to get by Katherine Leg.
And for David Martinez, we've talked a little bit about how some of these drivers have had trouble with the brakes. He has a very interesting phenomenon, is that if he really gets on the brakes hard, the brake balance is good. But if he gets on the brakes lightly in a little higher speed corner, it's mostly rear brake, not front, which is like pulling the handbrake and tries to turn the car around backwards. They are just scratching their heads. They've replaced the whole braking system. Can't figure out why. Under heavy braking, you're fine. Under light braking, it's all out of whack.
And they were even going back and watching some of the videotape of some of the earlier sessions. And you could physically see where the car would actually jump from one side. Charles Zwolsman, who qualified on the pole but lost it in that first turn, now has the lead back. He has to be very thankful that's the case, because it would be very hard if Tonys Kazmats had not made a mistake or have something break to have gotten this lead back.
Definitely worth watching that battle for second, and it does appear as though David Martinez is not off the start, but after the first few laps did develop lots of speed, and it's a case where he's really going to be kind of sizing up where there are opportunities, where there are not. And if it were me, I would wait till we catch a little more lap traffic, because that is really an opportunity to try and just position yourself in a place to take advantage of that. As
there you see the back to Antoine Bissett, that is fourth, and there is the battle for fifth going on right now between Andreas Wirth, and that is
Alan Shudo. I thought for a moment there he was going to have an opportunity. He had a fantastic exit off of the hairpin. I've been very, very impressed with Shudo. I mean, for a guy making a street circuit debut, an Atlantic debut at his age.
And this is only about his 6th or 8th car race ever. He is a go-kart guy, a kart guy. The guy is 17 years old. He graduates high school in 2 weeks.
I love how he says, well, I decided to retire from go-kart racing. I mean, retire at 17. What do you retire from anything at 17? But he's been incredibly impressive.
Yeah, we met him at the beginning of the program, and we were just laughing when he said, I'm going to retire from karting. But for an impressive debut for PR1 Racing, these guys are doing great. Dean's RC, the sponsors on the side of that car, stepped up and helped make this possible. They're hoping to do 3 races this season, primarily as a precursor to next year, and he is all over Andreas Wirth.
I think he's going to make a move here on the approach to the chicane.
He goes up, and he makes it happen, and in fact, Andreas Wirth wasn't able to go through, shortcuts it, but won't be penalized as a result.
I think that was good, clean racing, and I think for Andreas Wirth, I think it was a case where Shudo had the position, Worth didn't have any place to go, made a wise move. If I was a steward, I would say, that's great racing, let him go.
No harm, no foul, and very heads-up racing by the young man, Alan Sciutto, 17 years old. What do you do next? On the streets of San Jose, that kid just did a pretty decent pass. We'll come back with more Toyota Atlantic Championship Series here on Speed Channel. We are at speed there with Al Unser the third, but this is what's going on up front. Back markers in the way as the lead pack goes through. Charles Wolfsman continuing to lead. Katherine Leg right behind. There is David Martinez, and now Antoine Bissett has caught up to that lead pack as a result of the back markers. Ooh, you see him going over those bumps.
Definitely a wild ride across the trolley tracks, but like you said, and Katherine Leg a little bit squirrely, a little bit of rear brake lockup on the approach to the chicane. Of course, that means she's obviously pushing that much harder. You actually want the car to do that when you're at the absolute limit. You'd rather have the rear rotate just a little, and she definitely is trying to get herself in position, as Antoine Bissett, as you said, has also closed that gap up behind Martinez.
And remember what happened in Edmonton. She followed Zolzman for the first part of the race, waiting for something to happen. She tried to set up several moves, couldn't make them happen. Where she was able to get the lead was when Zolzman came up behind a back marker, made a small mistake, and Leg was able to take advantage of it.
And that's most likely what she's looking for here. It's going to be pretty tough to have enough of an advantage to just pass on your own. You're going to need some little mistake from Zolzman. You're going to need some ill-timed traffic for him. And look, there's plenty of cars ahead of him that could play into this.
And you look at that pack right there. That is the first 4 cars, just a slight gap between 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the track.
Keep your eyes on Bissett in the orange unique auto design car, because he has closed that gap so rapidly. He hasn't really lost that momentum. He hasn't fallen into the rhythm of these 4 cars yet. He's still, in his mind, is running at a higher pace than they are.
Trying to catch up to him. And I think they're coming up behind Justin Sofio, who is the C2 Yokohama Cup leader at this point on the track. But he is not in the same division as the championship cars, so his job now is to try to get out of the way, and he does a great job, moves to the side. But it's difficult to get to the side. See how he had to move back into the line as well. Dave?
I thought one of the more interesting stories about Justin Sofio this year was how his crew chief, Cam Binder, won the C2 championship last year, but in 6 seasons prior to that, Sofio was a mechanic for Binder. And this season has been a chance for Sofio to kind of get the limelight for once, but Binder will tell you Binder is still the veteran racer, and Sofio's just a rookie, but he'll be a rookie with a championship here really quick.
Yeah, this weekend it was just the 2 of them working on the car. Nobody else until this morning. They got another 3rd guy. Now take a look at what's going on. Once again, behind the back markers. And for a while, a moment ago, we saw Bissett taking a look at Martinez.
Timing is going to be everything. In that particular case, it actually was a benefit to Zolzman, and you can see it made more of a gap back to the other 3. But there will be other traffic that will work the other way. You just don't know. It's all about where you catch them, and if it takes air off the car, and what happens to your speed.
And there's somebody else right ahead. And as we saw when they were going around Justin Sofio, there are some places where you can move over, but there are some places you have to get back in line. They're coming up now on Grant Riley, who is a very experienced Atlantic driver, drove the series for a couple of years. Coming back into the series is kind of a little one-off for a sponsor, and he's slotting in behind Wolfsman, and that cuts the pack right there.
But he did so nicely. He didn't impede anyone. He's just trying to, he knows he's just running this one race, obviously hopes that it works into others, but is well aware, as you said, with a lot of experience as to what's happening here with the battle at the front.
Yeah, driving that car for Intervision Systems. Now you see how he's had to slot back in between Martinez and Bissett, and now Bissett goes ahead to try to move to the inside and try to catch back up to that front pack. Dave?
Let's check in with Katherine Leg's owner, Jim Griffith. Jim, Katherine's known for her ability to pass in traffic, but have you seen the guts out of the race car, too, to make this happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a really hard place to pass, so it's going to be a tough deal here. We'll just have to keep working on him, and hopefully maybe he'll make a little mistake.
And boy, guys, do you think that'll happen with Charles Wolfsman?
Charles has not made many mistakes. Yes, he made one in Edmonton, but this is a learning series. And when you make that mistake, you say to yourself, I'm not going to do it again. So it's highly unlikely he's going to see that problem. It's more a question of whether it's going to be presented in a situation that he can't control. Katherine Leg continues to chase Charles Wolfsman through the streets of San Jose, waiting for that moment when he makes a mistake. We'll find out if he's going to do that. Just 16 laps to go. We'll come back in a moment. And up front, while we were in commercial break, we have a new leader. Katherine Leg has passed Charles Wolfsman. Of course, now she's got to go through the back markers, and where Katherine Leg was hoping that Charles would make a mistake, now Charles is trying to take advantage of Katherine. Nope, nothing there. That's not a good place to pass.
We heard from her owner, Jim Griffith, saying that it would be really, really tough to get by, but obviously she has found a way.
Let's take a look at how it happened.
Coming across the trolley tracks here, there's actually a fairly big gap, and that was some type of mechanical difficulty. That was great for Katherine, but it looked as though Charles Wolfsman missed a gear. Looked as though as he came across the trolley tracks, he actually pulled out of the way, knowing that he was in some type of trouble. My guess is that it would be shifting, and that somehow he's either holding it in gear now or has found the remedy for that. But great for Katherine Leg to seize the opportunity, but I think that was a mechanical issue for Wolfsman.
And remember, the drivers are not allowed to block. They have to hold their line, so once you get to that line, you can't move back. Dave?
Let's check in with Carlos Bovedos now, the owner. Carlos, you've looked at the replay. What do you think happened with Charles, or did he say on the radio?
No, he tried to say something on the radio. We couldn't hear him. We assume that maybe he missed a gear. That's the only thing we can think of right now. But we weren't able to talk to him.
Sounds like you were right, Jan.
Charles Wolfsman does not make many mistakes.
No, but also remember that in the race in Edmonton, he had trouble with the gears, but he said that was because Katherine Leg hit him from behind in the first corner and he couldn't shift the rest of the race. Well, in this case, there was no contact, but there may have been a recurring issue.
But you never know with these cars. I mean, they spend all this time working on them, prepping them, getting them just right, but anything can happen, especially when you see the kind of bounces that they're going over when they're hitting those curves or going over the trolley trucks. And Antoine Bissett almost goes into the back of David Martinez.
And the closing rate in a 25-mile-an-hour corner, let's say you're a few tenths of a second behind someone, you just, by virtue of slowing down that much, you're going to be right on top.
Katherine Leg now has to figure out how to stay ahead, hold that lead, not have any problems with the back markers, and in fact try to build it up over the second place of Charles Wolfsman. Let's take one more look at that pass.
You can see how the cars actually get a little bit of air going over those trolley tracks, and right after that, Charles Wolfsman slows. And I would have to agree with his team owner that most likely, and he had his hand, you see a gesture there that he obviously knew something, and now he's trying to get back up to speed to retake it, but a little lost momentum on the straightaway, not a thing you can do to recover from that.
And realizing the situation with regards to the championship now with Tony's Kazmits out, the last thing that Charles wants to do is have a DNF. So discretion, the better part of valor. You want to back off that last little bit, because what you don't want to do is have a situation where you drop out of the race and you end up in the same situation with Tony's Kazmits. Right now, coming out of this race, Wolfsman is going to have a very strong lead. The last thing he wants to do is not finish this. Let's take a look at the season that Katherine Leg has had. We've talked about what a year it's been after a victory in Long Beach. This over-aggressive move at the start of Cleveland seemed to foreshadow things to come in Edmonton, but the tenacious Katherine Leg shook it off and pursued Charles Wolfsman until she took the lead. That pass right there, never looking back, making history again for women in motorsports. And she may be on her way to do it yet again in the streets of San Jose, the inaugural race here. And Katherine Leg has taken advantage of some type of problem that Charles Wolfsman had for just a brief moment and has the lead yet again. She is such a great story in terms of how she made this ride happen this year. Ran into Kevin Kalkoven at the beginning of this, when she was in London. Met him in an airport, talked him into funding the first 6 races. For a while, we didn't know if she was going to be able to continue on, but Kevin stepped up, wrote the check, and she's made the investment worthwhile.
And this is a great investment and a great place to have a result for your team over Kevin Kalkoven. Essentially, the architect of having a race in San Jose in the first place has all his key clients and sponsors here. And you think he was excited in Edmonton. If she pulls this off, he'll be doing backflips on pit road.
And one of the things that the team's been talking about, you know, early on she wasn't sure. She felt like she had desperately to get a good finish. And once Kevin stepped up and started paying for the rest of the season, the team said she just relaxed. She knew she had a ride. We'll take a brief break. Katherine continues to lead. We'll come back. On board with Allen to the third, who is in 6th place, but we have had a bunch of changes on the track. The most significant, the fact that Katherine has taken over the lead earlier on. But let's check in with Dave Burns.
I'm going to ask Jim Griffith to evaluate his day. You know, it's kind of positive on the 12 car, but kind of negative on the 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have your ups and downs. He was sure trying. I mean, he was running right with that group, so it was going good until then.
And Antoine was very confident about his chances here on this slippery street course today.
Yeah, he's a rally driver, you know, and he likes running on ice. He likes running on dirt, so this probably suited him a little bit today.
Maybe a few too many walls out there today, guys.
Yeah, a lot of walls out there. Now let's talk once again. What we've had is a situation where David Martinez, you just saw on the replay, was able to get by Charles Wolzman. We can only assume he's got some kind of a problem. Then we've had a second problem where Antoine Bassett has had a situation that has taken him off the track. So now the lead, as we see it right here, is Katherine Leg, then is David Martinez, and then Charles Wolzman in third. And here is the situation with Antoine Bassett.
A case here where you see Zolzman go through an exact same location that we saw the heavy contact for Tonis Kasemets in the qualifying session. Heavy hit. And as we heard the description from his team, just a little too wide, but some heavy contact.
And we go green racing again. Katherine Leg at the start of this race. David Martinez right behind Charles Wolzman. And Alan Shuto, the rookie, is in 4th. Now, he is not, however, 4th on the track because there's some back markers in the way. But he is now a lot closer than he would have been. He was about 20 seconds back. And now he's just about 4 seconds back.
As a matter of fact, he is in position.
Oh, it is that car, correct.
Yes, we thought that there would have been some lap cars in between, but that's not the case. So, wow, what a great opportunity for your first race to be able to see the lead and put pressure on Zolzman.
And you've got a guy who's had some problems, obviously, this entire race, Charles Wolzman, who started on the pole. Apparently has had some mechanical difficulties. It's caused him to move back to third. And now you got a 17-year-old kid right behind you. And he's got you in his sights. Look how he starts to slide through that turn.
He has a shot at getting on the podium. There's only 3 laps to go, but he's just had a phenomenal race. And for Zolzman, we just assume that on occasion it's not staying in gear or it's skipping a gear. And so he's going to hope that it stays in position. Dave?
That's exactly right, Jan. In fact, Carlos Bobedos was trying to hear his driver on the back side of this racetrack, and he couldn't. When he finally got around to this side, all he's hearing from Charles is talk about the gear. So something wrong in that gearbox for the 11 car.
Now it's a question as to whether it's going to hold. But Alan Shuto, the story of the race right now, former kart champion, has run just a handful of car races, if you want to call them that, open wheel stuff, and now he's here in his Atlantic debut in 4th. Made a great pass on Andreas Wirth to get into the lead pack, and now as a result of the full course yellow, he has Charles Wolzman, the points leader in the series, in his sights.
And if he gets really aggressive, Charles Zolzman's not going to let him through, but he also needs to be wise enough to know that it's so much more important for points for Zolzman, and maybe a great opportunity for a podium for Shuto here. It's been a fantastic race for him, however this works out.
1 lap to go. White flag is out here in San Jose on the streets. Charles Wolzman under attack by a 17-year-old. Meanwhile, up front, Katherine Leg is leading. David Martinez, who finished 2nd in Toronto, may be in line for the second place finish of the year, but it's going to be pretty tough right now for Alan Shuto to make something happen.
He's definitely close enough, and there we saw a little weave there. We saw a quick weave for Zolz, but he might have had more gearbox trouble.
Kevin Kalkoven, you saw, who was watching right there, but Alan Shuto wasn't able to make it happen.
Let's not forget about Katherine Leg. Things definitely have come her way. Boy, it's amazing how a championship and how a season can have all kinds of bad luck and turn around. Now everything is going Katherine Leg's way.
She won in Edmonton. She had that win in Long Beach. And now, if she can hold it together for the last turn, she is going to have herself yet another victory. This time at the inaugural San Jose Grand Prix, running through the streets of San Jose. She will take the checkered flag and have her 3rd victory of the year. Jim Griffith, you see him, the team owner there, a very happy man. He has had a lot of faith in her all year long. He kept saying, you know what? Don't worry about it. Settle down, relax, the victories will come. And obviously, he was right. The two of them shaking hands, Kevin Kalkoven going, you know, I'm kind of glad she ran into me in that airport after all. We'll take a break and come back to San Jose right after this. San Jose, Katherine Leg has her third victory of the season, and she earned this one. Having a great start, working her way up, and then taking advantage of a mistake by Charles Wolfsman. She's taking the helmet off. Let's get down to Dave Burns and our winner.
Her third win of the season, a triumphant run on the streets of San Jose. How difficult was it today, Katherine?
It was a tough race, actually, yeah. And you know, it's really tough to pass, and you just have to make sure you do perfect laps and not make any mistakes. And that's hard, and it was a long race, and it was a good one.
You talked about changing the car after morning warm-up. Did you guys make a change that helped you?
Actually, we went back to yesterday, you know, because we weren't sure what it was going to do, so we went back to what we knew, and hey, it worked out well.
Kevin Kalkoven with a big hug for her. And other great news, her dad, Derek, missed the race win at Edmonton. He is here today to enjoy it. There's Derek, a big hug from Dad on a great win for Katherine Leg. Rick?
Yeah, fortunately, he was there in Long Beach to see that one, so he's gotten to see 2 of her victories this year. Katherine Leg taking advantage of the mistake, and you know it's important. You got to be heads up. You got to be ready for those mistakes when they happen. And obviously, she was in Edmonton, and she was here as well. So she wins this race. David Martinez, another second place. Good finish by him. Charles Wolfsman. Alan Shudo, we can't talk enough. The 17-year-old phenom, we'll call him. Alan to the third. Finishes 6th. Good finish by Phil Gibler in his first race. He's 8th. Justin Sofio in 9th, winning the Yokohama C2 division and probably the championship with that. Let's check in with Dave Burns, who's down in victory circle, and our second place finisher, David Martinez, who has to be very, very happy.
David, another podium finish for you here in San Jose. How was that ride?
Well, it was a pretty hard race. We were really close the whole race, and the set catched with the traffic, and it was just, I don't think anybody made a mistake. I'm amazed about the competition in Atlantic. Katherine did a great race. Charles was doing a great race until, I don't know, he had a problem with the gearbox. And I think we did a consistent job, but we still need to have some job to do for the next races, but we'll get him next time.
David stayed off the walls, did not make mistakes. DM comes home second today.
Thumbs up from David Martinez, who's looking forward also to hopefully coming back next year in the new Atlantic cars. Now let's talk about the championship. Charles Wolfsman will continue to lead. The big problem for Tony Kazmich was having his gearbox break. As a result, he has dropped significantly in the points. Not unattainable, but he's going to need for Charles Wolfsman to have a problem. Let's check in with Dave Burns and our C2 champion.
That is Justin Sofio. Justin, congratulations on being the C2 champion after today.
Thank you. It feels great. I couldn't have done it without Matheson Motorsports, RLM Investments, Cam Binder, my family, everybody that's been behind me, Sam's Autoland, the Racer Shop, Bell Helmets. It's been a great year. It was a good run today.
Did it in his home state of California, guys.
Good job, Justin. Well, it's been a great race, great weekend, great fans out here this weekend. And they've seen a great show in this Atlantic race. So for Jan Beekes, Dave Burns, I'm Rick DeGrohl. Thank you for joining us for round number 9 of the 32nd season of the world's most prestigious open wheel development series. It's the Toyota Atlantic Championship. And we want to remind you to join us for the next Atlantic event on Saturday, August 20th at 3 p.m. Eastern. That's when the Atlantics will move to the Mile High City. We're going to be going through the streets of Denver, yet another street course. That's up next for the Toyota Atlantic.